My first time talking with you, Abraham, so I'm nervous, but I have a few questions. One is very personal, but I hope it serves others. I'm having some health issues.
I want to say to you, no question ever serves anyone unless it is personal. Now, you can make any issue personal, but unless you care, there's no real asking. Unless there's real asking, there's no real answering. Unless there's no real answering, then there's no serving of anyone. Just a little aside.
So it's about my health. And I think it's since the 11th that I've been, my blood pressure's been up, I've been dizzy, I've been just really not feeling well. I'm not feeling well right now.
How very odd that is. It's logical, isn't it? You understand that your physical well-being has to do with your state of allowing. And when something happens that aggravates that, in other words, would you say someone was beating an old drum of criticizing your nation's president? And someone listening to this said, "Oh, that is so September 10th." Meaning that the way it was all right for you to feel before that event is now not all right for you to feel after that event. Now, the only reason that we bring this up, it's funny, that's one reason. But the only reason that we bring this up is because we're wanting to point out that when something causes strong focus and you give an inordinate amount of attention to it, it is natural that it would activate vibration within you. And so as you activate vibrations within you of feelings of anger or feelings of vulnerability or feelings of fear, it's logical that you've activated something that causes you to allow your well-being less than what you were doing before that, you see. That's why you hear us talk on and on, that we want you to find your footing and understand that you have easy access to your stream of well-being under all conditions, so that you have good sea legs during extraordinary times. And many who have been studying the science of deliberate creation or the art of allowing under this or any other number of names, in other words, we are not the only ones talking about well-being. You've talked about it on your planet for centuries. As you come back into vibrational harmony with who you are, you do not suffer the effects of the global recognition to such a subject. We would not worry about it at all. We would begin to say things to ourselves such as, this is perfectly logical. I know that my physical well-being is amplified when I'm feeling good, and that my physical not well-being is emphasized or amplified when I'm focused upon things that do not feel good. It's a wonderful time to discover within yourself your ability to allow the energy to flow.
Yes, good.
Yes.
So, further on that,
yes.
And I know you've answered this a million times, but just let me hear it one more time. Working with fear.
What are you going to do differently? If it's been asked and answered a million times, then what is the factor that's going to change here that will be beneficial to you? What's going to make you hear it now if you haven't heard it before?
Good question. I think I need to just go to my next question.
Well, we were not trying to head you off from the question.
No, I realize you
weren't.
We
think focusing upon the question is a good thing. We just want to bring it to a way that everyone can feel it. If I've been asking for something and I haven't been receiving it, then there's something screwy in my allowing. So will asking the question again and again and again and again and again make me receive my answer, or do I need to approach this in some other way? And we would say, let's approach it in some other way. Ask your next question.
The next one that I was going to go to, because I think maybe it's connected. It has to do with making myself, how do I make myself a vibrational match for, I wrote God consciousness, but for, I have such a longing in my heart for a connection
The longing in your heart is your awareness of, in the moment, an absence of that connection, or at least a pinching of it off, because longing means I'm not where I want to be. And so your work is to replace the longing with relief. And you do it one little thought at a time. You just reach for thoughts that feel better and better and better and better and better. Just one thought at a time.
Okay, well, I embarrassed myself mightily about a week before the World Trade Center situation happened. But I'd like your feedback on situations so I don't beat myself up too much. I was given what I thought was some information from a friend, from a government-related person, actually a lawyer, a very high government lawyer, who had spoken with a friend of mine, telling her, she told me, that a lot of changes were happening in the U.S. government, would be happening, that the Federal Reserve would be changing to the gold and silver standard, that those changes were happening and would be announced soon, that President Bush would resign, that the tax structure would be mightily simplified. All this made me very excited. These were all things that I very much wanted. And so I called everybody I was close to. I was kind of showing off because I love being the first person to tell people things. I just really like doing that. And then this happened. And I would love to know that this person was right, that she was told correctly.
Wrap it around what you heard then, what you know now, and what are you getting at?
Well, I sort of think it's probably true. It's just that I'm not getting a lot of backup for it. I mean, it's like nobody else thinks that way, you know? It feels kind of uncomfortable to feel like I know something, but not really be able to talk about it to people close to me, like family. They just think I'm way out in left field. It just feels really weird.
Well, now give us more description about what you heard was going to happen that you wanted to happen.
That the tax structure would be immensely transformed in a very radical way.
Yes.
That the Federal Reserve would disappear, would change to gold and silver standard. That a lot of our government leaders were there illegally, and there would be a re-election, and because of that, President Bush had agreed to step down, to resign in light of all of this. And that there was a secret bill passed in Congress that they weren't allowed to talk about, and so if you ever saw NESARA on the net, if you go to the net at www.nesara.com, they will deny that that bill was actually passed, but she was told that it actually did pass. And that it would be announced shortly. But at the time that it was to be announced, this happened instead, bringing us to believe that it was an inside job to stop that from happening.
Well, I want to talk here for just a little while and bring all of this back into a place that helps you to find your center about it. Because you heard us say earlier that whenever anything happens, it is always the culmination of a whole lot of intentions. And when you look around at people who are benefiting from anything that happens like this, someone said that your current administration is receiving such extraordinary benefit from this upheaval that it could not have been better if they had planned it themselves. And when Esther heard that, it was very unsettling to her, and we said, they're not planning it themselves in that nefarious way. It is that all of the intentions that everyone is holding always come into the mix and result in these unfoldings of world events. As you speak here, we can feel the discord sort of rippling across the room. First of all, because nobody wants to think these kinds of thoughts, and we agree that they are not the kinds of thoughts that are connecting in nature. But the most significant thing that we want to give you about it, and it comes back to what we talked about earlier, about that idea of chaos, If you get together with a room full of people who have had any positions in the government of any kind, you would hear so many stories of inside stuff that it would make your head spin and you would totally lose your place of connection. And we want to remind you of this most extraordinary and significant fact. As important as your government thinks that it is to you, it is law of attraction that is the manager of the way things are unfolding, you see. So, in truth, elections are insignificant because the mass consciousness is casting its votes at a truly grassroots level. And source energy is answering those requests at a truly grassroots level. And someone would say, well, that's very Pollyanna. And we say, Pollyanna lived happily ever after. In other words, we would, if we were standing in your physical shoes, do anything and everything that we could do to bring ourselves to the place of feeling good about whatever it is that we are giving our attention to. We watch some expressing patriotism, and we know that in that expressing of patriotism, many are utterly connected to source energy in the doing so. It feels so lovely to really be proud of something. But we've also noticed a difference. Using the same word of patriotism, some are in alignment with source energy and some are pushing very hard against something else. Esther, driving the monster bus the other day, sang and sang and sang. Jerry finally moved himself as far away as he could, which isn't very far. As Esther is singing God Bless America. And then she got it in her head to go through the alphabet and bless Bulgaria and Czechoslovakia and Denmark and England and France and Germany and Hungary. In other words, she went all the way through the alphabet. And sometimes she'd go through the alphabet again and again and again and again and again and again as she is wanting this feeling of well-being and wanting to hold oh so many countries in her gaze as she is allowing the way she is feeling as she is singing to flow through her. So what we're getting at, there are all kinds of facts that would upset you if you were privy to them. Being privy to them doesn't help you, and not being privy to them doesn't hurt you, because well-being is the order of the day, you see. One day, something happened. It was an international event. And Esther got a very clear hit on what had really happened. And she asked us, and we agreed with her, that what she was receiving and the actual fact of the event were one and the same. And they were very different from what was being spoken. And Esther said, Abraham, shouldn't somebody tell somebody? And we said, what would that accomplish? In other words, play it out of your mind both ways. What serves to connect the masses and what serves to disconnect the masses? And Esther said, but in ignorance, isn't there danger? And we said, in ignorance, there is usually more bliss than danger. Because if you are not focused upon the specifics of things that disconnect you, you're not disconnected. And if you are not disconnected, then you continue to thrive. You see. Do we think that there are government conspiracies that are afoot to undermine your government? Yes, we think they are everywhere. We think that there are endless people that would surprise you, that have personal interests or personal complaints. In other words, it is one of the reasons that your nation does as well as it does, because there is such diversity, such variety in what is wanted, and nobody really gets a very strong foot. The pendulum swings so rapidly back and forth that nothing gets very far off before it swings back the other way, you see. And so we would not spend any time at all trying to uncover things that make you feel awful when you get the first little whiff of it.